Usually.
There it is. All right. So okay. So we're live now, and I'll introduce myself. I'll start off first. So guys, you guys know me. I'm Chris Fagan with This Is T3 Medias, and I'm doing a new podcast. We're gonna have a discussion about the Amber Guyger murder trial, and I've been invited two new people that I've been introduced to recently who are going to help me with this discussion, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Chauncey.
Yes, hi.
Am I saying that name right? And
Yes,
Sarah.
Chauncey.
Hi.
Okay, so let's start off. Chauncey, you can introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, Chauncey Pham here, realtor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and also real estate investor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in East Texas.
Awesome. And Sarah?
I am Sarah Nowak. I have a staging company in the DFW area, Sarah Nowak Interiors, and I work with a lot of investors and people like Chauncey.
And I'm Chris Fagan, a advocate and a huge supporter of the show Law and Order. So I'm 100% qualified to have this conversation. No, I'm not. I'm just like everybody else, just like Chauncey, just like Sarah. We're just people who watch the trial closely, and we're just going to share our opinions about it. So without further ado, let's just start off right now with cultural impact. Does anybody have an opinion of what the cultural impact of this whole situation has brought us? What do you think, Chauncey? Sarah, what do you think is going on here?
So my whole take on this, and the whole reason that I feel like this happened, is because culturally, for whatever reason, and so I'll start out by saying that I am moderately liberal. So that means I'm cool with guns, right? Like my husband has guns. And still carry license and all of that. So I'm not one of those people like take all the guns away. But I do think that over time and where our culture is right now with guns, people almost feel empowered to do shit that they know that they really shouldn't be doing. I feel like the movement of the gun culture has just empowered people to kind of devalue lives. That's why we're seeing so many different, old dudes at the gas station with some young kids in the car next to them playing loud music. Hey, kids, turn down your music. The kids say F off, and they shoot a gun into the car. Situations like that are happening because, like I said, these guns are making people feel like Billy Badass. So then when you marry that with kind of culturally this idolatry where there's a certain subsector of society that like almost idolizes law enforcement. I get it, like liking their authority and respecting their authority, appreciating the fact that they put their lives on the line for society. That's all good and dandy, but at the same time, we've got to hold them accountable. And there's this section of society that thinks that if we ever hold them accountable, that we're not necessarily respecting their authority and their position in society. And that married with this gun culture that we have, I think has put a lot of law enforcement in some sticky situations because instead of trying to de-escalate situations, they're going in guns blazing. And I think that is the whole underlying issue with this case is instead of her taking a step back, she just, you know what, somebody's in my apartment.
Right.
Whatever this asshole is about to get it. And she went in guns blazing and it was a huge.
It reminded me a lot of the Trayvon Martin thing, because the one question that was asked of him was, would you have felt compelled to walk up to this person that you in your head you said looked suspicious, was dangerous? Would you have felt safe enough or compelled enough to follow him and walk up on him if you didn't have a gun in your possession? Because right. If he was so dangerous looking, you didn't know if they had a gun or if they could have been a bigger threat. But you knew you had your gun, so you went in there into the situation knowing that you could, do what you need to do. And I'm not saying that that's it's not a bad thing to be able to defend yourself or anything like that if the situation is warranted. But when you're starting the fight, when you're going into the ring, and the other person doesn't even know there is a ring, doesn't even know what that's what's happening. It's a whole. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a whole mess that where people's lives are taken, and then after somebody's life is taken,
I totally agree.
We learn more about the victim's dirt than the shooter. Like for Amber Guyger's case, we learned that he had marijuana before we don't even know what she had in her system or anything. We hardly know anything about Amber Guyger except for what came out in the trial. But before the trial came out, they already began their smear campaign on to try to justify his death, because it's easy to do that to a dead body.
Absolutely.
To frame. What about you, Sarah? What do you think about the culture?
Well, I agree, and I think you made a really good point there, because it happens every single time we have seen these stories in the news where a police officer is taking the life of an unarmed or Black man or woman that has not been found to be committing a crime. Now all of a sudden their character comes into question when things they've done in the past is really not relevant, especially since the officer that's shooting them doesn't know that at the time. Right. So, and people don't have to be completely innocent in order to deserve the freedom to exist without fearing police.
Right.
So, that innocence in that respect doesn't really matter. I mean, yes, marijuana is illegal in Texas, and Botham Jean was in Dallas with marijuana. Still,
marijuana and ice cream
matter though, and the fact that people even dug that up and bring it up is to me, it's ridiculous, because, like you said, they're trying to justify somehow or make him the bad guy and allow her to remain the good guy.
Right.
And that again goes back even to like what I was saying on the gun culture and just the empowering, and kind of like what you just said, people are allowed to do things wrong, but like not have to fear for their life from police. Let's just pretend this was her apartment. And let's just say he was in there robbing it. She was still outside in a safe space that she didn't have to go in. And since when is death the sentence for robbery?
Right. Now, exactly. I feel like it's different if it's an individual, because we do have that ability in Texas to protect our property. And so an individual that's armed can go in and say, yeah, I'm going to shoot an intruder that's stealing or, doing whatever inside of my house. But as a police officer, on duty or not, they have a responsibility to uphold the law in a different way that allows for just justice for individuals. And we shouldn't be, like you said, they're not judge and jury and executioner, or they are apparently, but they're not supposed to be. So
right. I think it was in the 80s that I don't know if you've seen those old movies where you see a cop come into a situation and the kids or the suspect would run away, and then the cop would say freeze and then start shooting. And I think it was in the 80s where Congress had to change the law where so officer, if you're not in immediate danger, the target was running away from you, so there's no justification for shooting them in the back. Just, resisting arrest or running away from the cops is not a death sentence. So right. So people get too trigger happy in that situation. Now, if you're protecting your home, like you said, I can understand it. If there's an intruder in your house, you don't know what they have, then yeah, you're going to be compelled to defend yourself. The thing that I was upset about was that how quickly the prosecution was able to pick apart her whole story. I couldn't see his hands. Well, where could he have hid his hands? He was wearing underwear without pockets. And he was sitting down. He was eating ice cream. And then here's the question: doesn't he also have the right to stand his ground? Doesn't he have the right to defend his home?
Right. Yeah.
But when it's a cop involved, then it's almost like, no, whatever that cop does to you is fine, and we're going to make sure that you're smeared and you're the bad, no matter what. And that's the part that I always have a problem with. It's like, okay, what about his rights? What about him standing his ground? He was actually in his ground, 100% in the right. And then I think I said that on Facebook to our mutual friend, where I go, well, what name if she gets off 100% or is found not guilty of murder, but then tell me what did he do wrong?
Right. Yeah, because allowing her to get off would suggest that he had some sort of role in why that this happened, and obviously he didn't. but I think it also shows that, racial bias at work, because I think most of us have posited and agreed that if it was a white woman or a white man, she probably wouldn't have shot that person.
Mm-hmm.
I think she was afraid, and probably due to just general racial bias. People are, especially cops, are often seeing in Dallas, when you have a high, ratio of Black men committing crimes versus white men committing crimes, because you're in areas that are more Black people live there, then they make assumptions, and obviously that's not right, but we have to be able to recognize that when it happens. And seeing her police disciplinary records, her text messages, her social media posts, they all speak to her character, and they all kind of point in the same direction, which is that she definitely walked into that situation, and likely many, many more, with racial bias dictating her actions.
Right. Agreed. I do.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said I totally agree with Sarah. Like I think that was very succinctly put, Sarah.
Why, thank you, Chauncey.
Okay, so let's go deeper into the murder, the trial itself. You guys saw it, the whole thing where she was crying, and I was talking before we started streaming live. I was talking about what I call the Kim Kardashian defense, where she's only thinking about herself. I feel that for me, that this is impacting my life, and he died, and I think this is going to ruin me, and I'm going to lose my job, and
and you heard that in the 911 recording as well. Right. I mean, her first reaction was, "Oh my God, my life is ruined." Not, "Oh my God, this man's dying. How do I save his life?" Right. Which is,
"Oh my God, I'm in the wrong apartment. Maybe I should, try to find some towels to stop the bleeding." Anything. Yeah. Anything. She immediately went to continuing to text her boyfriend, and to complain about, "Oh my God, I just fucked up," is what I think is what she said. Yeah. And people said that the text messages should be irrelevant. What she said in the past should be irrelevant. Well, then, if they were so irrelevant, why were they so important to her to delete them while he was sitting there bleeding? I'll tell you why. Because I felt like in her mind, she was like, "Oh my God, I just shot a Black man in his apartment. These old text messages of me talking about Martin Luther King or something, like, it's gonna look bad. I better delete these."
Hell yeah, of course she did. As much as she made some bad decisions, she's obviously not stupid, because she knew exactly what was going to be, how that was going to implicate her. Right. Because it did.
I better call 1-800-COVER-UP before before this gets out. But I thought that was the most damning thing, where you had the list of text messages on one side, and then on the right side of the page it showed were they deleted, yes or no, and it was the word yes was next to the most damning one. The comments about her Black coworkers, about Martin Luther King Day and things like that. It's like those are the ones she's supposed to delete.
Right.
No, go ahead.
Oh no. I was just agreeing like that. I mean, that was very, very damning. And it just kind of goes to show just the banter and the unspoken biases that, I mean, if we're being honest, that a lot of people still have, regardless of race,
Mm-hmm.
But just
the police force, in my
opinion. People always, the ones that say that they never see race, they never seem to see race when they're defending themselves from something that just happened. Right. That's always seems to be the situation. Oh, I never see race. Like it's not a thing. It's not possible.
Everybody sees race, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're different. Right. There's white people, Black people, brown people, Asian people, everybody. I mean, there's different people. Why we don't have to pretend like we don't see that or like it doesn't exist?
Well, those are always the same people. I feel like that say that are also the ones who always clearly see race whenever they feel like an Amber Guyger
Exactly.
for example, needs the defense. You're only trying to make an example out of her because she's white. All the people of color who have been convicted for BS charges, that happened so long ago. You need to get over it and things like that. You can't claim to not see race and then tell people to turn a blind eye to a certain one group over another when it benefits you.
Absolutely. And they always see race when it's a little white cheerleader that is harmed by someone that's, not white. Right. So that race is always seen then. So
you probably were right about that. I'm sure she saw race when she was fearful that this black guy that was in what she thought was her apartment was what allegedly coming at her. You can't tell me she didn't see race.
Afraid of thinking that there's a stranger in her apartment. That's obviously that's normal fear, but obviously the decisions that she made leading up to that could have prevented her even being in that situation. Like Chauncey mentioned earlier, if I walk up to what I believe is my apartment and the door is ajar and I hear noises like a TV or people talking coming from inside, gun or not, police officer or not, I'm going to stand outside the door and call 911, at least for the sake of having backup. And so that I'm not in a situation where I might be harmed, even if I feel comfortable that I have a weapon and I know how to use it.
Because where was he going to go? I mean, it's possible maybe he could have gone out the back and jumped off a balcony off a fourth floor, but then you would no longer be in danger.
Right.
The only other direction to go would be out the front door. And if he knows that you're out there, possibly with a gun, he's probably not going to make a move.
Exactly. And that split second decision is what changed everything. And I mean, I've told many people this, guys. I've been to that apartment complex. The girl that used to do my hair actually lived in that complex.
Is it as confusing as people that residents that are there say it is? Like
legit. Almost every time that I went to go get my hair done, I was on the wrong floor because are
the doors not marked?
Not really. Like it's just concrete halls and. It just depends on like where you park. And then when you go in, you just have to kind of know what floor you're on. I'm pretty sure there are some markers somewhere, but they're obviously not very distinct if so many people have this issue. Like every time I went there to get my hair done, I would be on the wrong floor.
That's just weird because
all the doors look exactly the same.
All the doors should at least have a number to the left or the right of it. I mean, the
doors do have a number and they have like a light. So they have like a vertical light and then there's like the vertical apartment number, but because they just all look exactly alike and all of the lights are the same color and you're just down this concrete hall.
And like she was in the middle of sexting her boyfriend at the time,
right?
So
I mean, how many times have you been distracted and walked into your own house and done something stupid like put your keys in the refrigerator, you know what I mean? And so in a situation like this, just because it really did all look the same and I've been there, I totally understand that part of what happened. I genuinely understand that. But all of her actions, once she made it to the door and actually thought somebody was in, the fact that she thought she was Billy Badass and needed to go in guns blazing and eliminate whatever threat she perceived to be inside instead of taking a step back and evaluating the situation, that split second could have given her just the clarity to realize, oh shit, I'm not even at my apartment.
This guy broke into my house, rearranged all my furniture, included more furniture, and proceeded to eat my ice cream. That's pretty much what her defense was.
Yeah. Well, like I said in that thread, what Chauncey just described is with the difference between when it went from being I made a mistake to I made a bad decision, and that's where the murder conviction comes in. People are like, oh no, it should be manslaughter because she just made a mistake, but she didn't. She made a mistake by going to the wrong floor and to the wrong apartment. But once she knew that there was something wrong inside the apartment and she drew her weapon and decided that she was going to kill the threat inside
instead of calling backup,
that's when she made a bad decision. And that's when it was a manslaughter type, situation to being, this is just murder. I mean, she didn't
make the choice to go to the wrong apartment. She chose to draw her gun.
Right.
and that was her own words. And I had to explain to my stepdaughter about. I said, well, there's a failure to, what is it called? I think you just said it, Chauncey. Failure to render aid law, and it became real popular and enforced after the death of Princess Diana. So you're in a situation where if you, within reason, if you can lend a hand, or if you, like I say, you witness a murder, you witness a guy walk up to another guy and shoot him, and then run away, and you're the only person that saw it, and you have your cell phone in your hand, and you just decide to just go to Starbucks and just ignore it, then you had a hand in that person's not shooting him. But if that person died, you had a hand in his death, because if you would have taken the time to call the cops or call the ambulance, maybe the ambulance would have got there in time and saved that person's life, which was exactly what she was 100% guilty of. Instead of calling 911, she called her boyfriend and started complaining about that. And then when the paramedics showed up, did you try to you're trained for this, did you try to do anything for him? Nope. I'm just standing here watching his ice cream melt and watching him bleed,
sitting there crying, woe is me, my life is ruined, while this man's gasping for his last breaths. I mean, that takes a really sick person, in my opinion, to sit there and do that. So I'm glad she's behind bars and is having to suffer the consequences of that type of behavior, because it's kind of disturbing,
right? To have that a lack of empathy on it, which led to her getting what the jury went out. Moving on to the verdict. So the jury finally came back with a conviction of 10 years, which was way below what I thought I had the over and under at 30, and a lot of people on my page thought, let's see if I can find anything here that shows it. A couple people said 10 years just announced. Let's see. A lot of comments that said maybe she's going to get less. A lot of people thought she was going to get less than 30, and that's exactly what she got. So as far as the verdict, fair, not fair? What do you think?
I think fair. I mean, I think the jury. I read the jury, which was, we know, mostly women and people of color. They took about 5 minutes to all agree that she was guilty, because it was just so clear, based on her testimony mostly, that she was guilty. I mean, she committed this crime, and there was no option to come back with a not guilty verdict, in my opinion. I mean, that would have just been inaccurate.
Agreed.
I thought that I was trying to listen closely to how the judge was describing that form. I never saw that before, that there's a form you have to sit in front of, and you check this box if you're trying to keep it at the minimum, and then another box is if she can get the max and things like that, if you believe she was in this state of mind or that state of mind, things like that. I didn't know that it was like that. I thought it was just like that old movie 12 Angry Men. They just go in there and they just start hashing it out. Yeah,
I've never actually been a juror before, but I didn't know it was like that either. But the jurors did say that they felt that the 28 years that the prosecution asked for was harsh. I mean, everybody knows that, understands that obviously this wasn't a premeditated act. And so, you feel for someone who makes a shitty decision in a, shitty state of mind, and then has to suffer like this for it. But I mean, obviously she has to be punished, this
right. Because if you don't, it comes back to my original question. Then you have to convince me, what did he do that was so bad that he deserved. I felt, okay, I remember saying this to someone yesterday. At the very minimum, this was an assault. Okay, think about if this was a fight, where then if somebody got into a fist fight with another person, and then somebody died, or well, if they don't die, then you can be charged with assault, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So I felt like whatever, and if anything, since it was his home, since, like I said, he didn't know that he was getting in this boxing match with this person with the gun. He didn't know a fight was about to happen, but a gunfight came to him, and in his own home. So at the very minimum, I felt like whatever the maximum of a assault with a deadly weapon is. I felt like that should be the floor of what she should have gotten. And then whatever above that, up to murder, should be what the. I don't know why, but I just felt like that should have, an assault with a deadly weapon should have been the minimum. Should have been whatever the maximum of an assault with a deadly weapon is, should have been the minimum of what she could have gotten.
And I agree. I mean, I don't see why that. I mean, it makes total sense.
What do you think, Johnson?
I mean, the verdict of murder I thought was fine, but I mean, are we kind of moving on to the sentencing part? I thought all of it was fair. I do, and here's another reason why. Oftentimes in these cases, I think a huge grievance that people of color have is that we don't feel like we get a fair shot. Right? There's typically an all-white jury. There's typically a white judge. And you've lost before you even started. In this one, it was a mostly people of color jury, and the judge was a woman of color.
And a lot of people probably felt like which was unfair, which would probably be unfair to her.
Which would be unfair to her. So
I actually did see some people saying that was unfair to Amber because it doesn't reflect the demographics of the city as a whole. Mm-hmm. But in my opinion, I think
if she would have gotten 99 years, that would have been the huge argument that the jury, the judge, and everybody was biased against her because of what she is. That's exactly what everybody would have said. But you're right though. We skipped from we did pass up the victim impact statements. Which one stood out to you the most?
Of course, the brother. Brandt. Yeah. I mean, that was probably the most moving, like, humane thing that I've ever seen somebody, do. And like you said before, that guy showed up every day to court with his Bible in his hand. And you could tell just from the way that their parents spoke and the way that everyone spoke about the victim that, like, they didn't just talk about being Christians. Like, they walked that walk. Right. And I felt like his impact statement, I think she has the opportunity to change who she is while she's in prison. And if it goes the way that I hope it goes, is she'll use this as an opportunity to when she gets out, she'll be younger than 40 years old. So maybe she'll, that impact statement and him embracing her may actually help her come out and do something big, for society. But I know for me personally, in that moment when he did that, I was like, damn, Chauncey, you want to punch this other realtor in the face from this transaction you did last week. You need to let that shit go.
Right. If anything, it made me think of that. I went on a whole rant on somebody's Facebook page where I feel like because we were talking earlier about like people shouldn't be more upset than the actual victim when it comes to whether it's a racist or prejudiced act or a joke or something like that. If somebody said something prejudiced or did something racist against like an Asian person, and that Asian person didn't take any offense by it or as a whole, like let's say like the majority of Asian people would hear that joke and be like, I'm not offended by it. But the majority of Black people would be like overly offended for them. I don't feel like that's necessary. If the person that the joke was targeted at, or the thing that happened to them isn't at like I said a level 10, then you shouldn't be at a 15. So attacking the brother for hugging her and whatnot, I think they totally missed the point.
The whole point. It went right over their head because he didn't do that for her. He did that for him.
And I do agree with you when it comes to things like jokes and stuff, that we definitely shouldn't be more offended for someone else than they are for themselves. But when it comes to a crime being committed, we have to demand justice because this speaks to a larger issue in our city and in our nation. And we have to make sure that people are held accountable for their actions. And maybe I wouldn't do it, but I have no way. It's not my place to say that Brandt should not have forgiven her or embraced her or anything like that, because spiritual forgiveness is totally separate from legal justice.
Yeah, exactly.
To say she deserves to be punished, just like the mother Allison said. Look, we wanted a longer sentence, but we're happy that we got the conviction.
It could have easily have been not guilty.
Right. It could have gone a whole other way.
And either way, though, I think that Brandt would have forgiven her, because that would, like you said, Chauncey, this is in his heart to do, and he's walking the walk that he talks, and that's great. That's good for him. I know a lot of people wouldn't react that way, and some people are praising him, saying, yes, this is what we should all do.
But the people that are attacking him for doing it, they're what you said earlier, that's the point that they're missing. They're merging the sentencing or the punishment or the fact that she's guilty and merging that with his actions of forgiving her for it. Those are two separate things. It's people out there online right now saying that because he's got a slave mentality or something like that because of the fact that he forgave her. No, he doesn't. That's an insult. It's his brother. That's an insult to his own brother. To say that's almost saying that he believes his brother deserved what he got. Right. That's not the case. So
I'll pass on commenting on the slave mentality because I am white, so I don't think that's really I mean, that's none of my business.
It's other black people on Facebook are saying that they're mad at him for forgiving her because it's like we're letting too much stuff go.
Yeah, and I've seen that, and I mean, like I said, I won't comment on that because I can't say that's wrong or to believe or that's
it's wrong.
Right.
It's wrong.
So I wasn't gonna put you on the spot like that, Sarah. As a black woman, how do you feel, Sarah?
But it's his right to forgive someone. That's his right.
Right.
So people need to leave him alone.
You can't,
and that's the way that he chooses to heal. And these same people that say that he's wrong for forgiving Amber Guyger are trying to get the family to forgive the uncle that's been touching the nieces since 1983. So
they're the same people that will also go to church, and they're obviously not listening to what they're reading and what they're saying. It's exactly what Jesus would have done. He would have forgiven. But it's what they're really. I feel like what they're doing, the ones that are online making these comments, what they're really saying is they're mad at themselves because they know that. And it's not. I don't feel like there's anything wrong with admitting. I said it myself. I wouldn't have been strong enough to forgive him. I would have definitely said, I hope you, you deserve to die, and I hope you burn in hell, in a Samuel L. Jackson voice. I know I would have, but I'm not going to say that he has a slave mentality because he walked the walk. Unless I could prove that he's never been to church, he only brought that Bible like the day of the trial and was just doing it, for the first.
Right.
But even then, we don't know that he because of what happened to his brother, he didn't give himself to Christ at that very moment, which Christians are still supposed to take at face value. When a person says, "I am now a Christian," that's it. You don't question that.
Right.
You don't judge a person when they say that.
And I think people also forget that he lost his brother, like a year ago? I mean, this didn't just happen. Mm-hmm. The trial was just came to a close. But
that's right. Why do I feel like you just hit me with? Why do I feel like this just happened like a couple of weeks ago?
I mean, and losing someone you love in a tragedy like this doesn't just go away in a year. But he's had time to process the event. He's had time to process grief and hopefully, I'm sure pray and, come to terms with it, at least in a way that I'm sure it's going to take more time to, be okay. But he's obviously at a point where he was ready to forgive her and let that part go. And, that's his place to do it. I mean, I think people are forgetting that this didn't just happen.
Right.
Yeah. You're right. You just hit me with that fact too. I don't know why, because the verdict is so fresh that I'm feeling like the shooting just only happened a couple days ago or something like that. I knew that wasn't the case, but that's how I kind of felt.
It doesn't seem like it happened that long ago, but
right.
I mean,
it was a year.
But it was a year. Yeah, you're right. So and the people that are out there defending for the next topic of people who are defending Amber Guyger, I put the word out. Nope, I didn't get a response. I don't think anybody really wants to chime in too much about defending her. So
well, I mean, and I think this just goes back because I've seen quite a bit of it on my social media, and again, it goes back to the very first thing that we talked about. which is just kind of culturally the idolatry behind like people literally idolizing law enforcement. Right. They put their lives on the line every day. They do this, they do that. Man, that's the job they chose.
Right.
Like you signed up for that.
Yeah. Just like in the military, like people say the same thing. The people always feel like just by bringing up the military that's going to be the end of the conversation. No, people are still people. People in the military, people in the police department can still make mistakes, and like you said, Sarah, make bad decisions.
Absolutely.
Well, culture of any questioning their behavior is immediately squashed as you're not a patriot or
right.
That is what has created this situation that we're in, where we have police getting away with shit.
Absolutely.
Like we stop doing that.
I brought up that whole thing with going off topic for a second, like with the president, where I felt like it was an insult to the troops, where he was defunding the Pentagon and what. I was like, I worked overseas, contracted for the military for 6 years, so I know what those budgets and what they need that for. But then I got one of his supporters going, "Oh, boo hoo, little army boy doesn't like what the commander in chief is saying." Like they will to support their agenda, they will even attack the troops.
Right.
When it suits them.
I agree. But that's in my opinion, the president has done a lot of things that would be offensive to troops, but
but
that's a whole other day. That's a whole other topic.
We'll be back on that tomorrow. But the whole mentality, like you were talking about earlier, with the whole mentality about gun worshiping and whatnot, are we afraid that one of the Democratic nominees are going to take away the guns because they're what the fear is that. Like what happened in Australia, for example, very conservative place at the time. But then when they banned those assault weapons, then the shooting, the number of deaths by those types of shootings went down dramatically. Mm-hmm. They're afraid, like just like with healthcare, they're afraid to implement it because they know deep down in their hearts that if it starts to work, if those deaths start to go down, they know that the chances of bringing it back will never ever come up and will go back up again. Just like cigarettes, not the second you took it out of the restaurants, people now and try lighting up a cigarette now in a place which you're not supposed to. Oh my God.
Exactly.
Oh my God. What the hell are you doing? But in the 90s, it was like smoke up.
Totally agree. And I'm like on the same page as Chauncey as far as like, I'm a very moderate liberal. We're from Texas, so we believe in our right to bear arms, and we're not ready to give that up yet. But at the same time, it's just common sense that if you take the guns away, then the gun related crimes, deaths, and injuries are going to go down. Whether or not we're willing to give that up in order to achieve that result is a different story. But it's just common sense that it would work.
Yeah,
it's obviously not going to prevent all because find them all. Everybody's not going to give them up, but it would definitely decrease significantly.
It would have made a huge difference in this man's life. But like we said earlier, if she didn't have a gun on her at the time, would she have taken the appropriate steps? Would she have called for backup? Even with the embarrassment of backup showing up and them going, Amber, this isn't your fucking apartment. That's better. This is a woman who we talked about when we went back on the victim impact statement. I'll tell you, I forgot to tell you what the one that was. I don't know, was it the victim impact statement or was it during the trial? The thing that stuck out the most to me was that former officer that coworker of hers that revealed that she had a prisoner in custody that she let get away handcuffed. I talked about how bad of a cop that she was. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect another officer to come. I was like, they that boys in blue thing is not happening anymore. Right. They are throwing her under the bus. They are disassociating themselves from her. That was the most impactful statement that I saw.
I was impacted by the president of the Dallas Police Association, Sergeant I don't know, Mata, turning off the dash cam to talk to her. I mean, I feel like you don't do shit like that if you don't know that something wrong happened, you know?
Yeah. While she was an officer, they were gonna do whatever it took to trash his character and protect her. But when they couldn't keep her on the force anymore, the second she was fired, they didn't care. They go do whatever you want to do with her.
Because they don't want to themselves to be implicated. They want to just let her take the fall. Or really, this is a larger issue.
Yeah, the prosecution talked about how it's a culture in the police department there in Dallas that needs to be, because this has happened too many times before. He brought up a lot of other cases in the 80s and the 90s where the verdict was very different, and it's because the police will immediately go into the whole protect mode and cover, because they know prosecute. It's very hard for prosecutors too to also prosecute other cops, because they know then that if they won't cooperate with future cases, because you just got my partner arrested, put in jail, so why should I help you prosecute? They know that it's not the way it's supposed to be, but it's the way it is.
This might sound extreme, or maybe not to you guys, but if that's the case, then how can we say any of them are good if they're willing to behave that way and say, well, I didn't break the law, but you nailed my brother, so I'm not going to cooperate with you in the future? That is jeopardizing the sanctity of our justice system, and that person shouldn't be an officer either. Right?
I think it goes into a whole fear thing about what other cops will think of them.
How many, quote, bad apples are we talking about? Are we talking about more bad apples than good ones? I mean, I think it brings that into question seriously, because we have to be able to trust that our police officers are, going
to have integrity
and have integrity. And it seems like the more we start pursuing cases like this, the more we see that many of them do not.
It's a mob mentality thing. You're more afraid. You probably are willing to do the right thing, but if everybody around you, that you don't know who's going to be the one to come against you. Is it your supervisor? Is it your partner? And how many of them are? You're always going to be outnumbered. So the easiest thing to do is to give it. There's a movie about to come out on this exact same topic with the dash cam or the body cam. A black officer that catches her partner, another cop's committing a crime, and then she has to pretty much join forces with the gang to expose these guys.
There have been lots of movies about it. There was the documentary, The 7-5, which was, kind of dealing with that same subject, which is that you've got a few dirty cops, and then you've got some moderate cops with wishy-washy integrity, and they're willing to turn the other way or even become involved in order to not be blackballed by their fellow cops. So, I mean, in that case, though, then those cops who are wishy-washy become bad cops, whereas before maybe they weren't, but then they become one by, association.
Okay, here's a scenario as a realtor. So Chauncey, me and you are both real estate brokers. All right,
I'm not a broker. I'm an agent. I have to correct you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the only real estate broker here on this panel. I just want everybody to hear that. So, okay. So at my firm, I'm, let's say that I have the number one firm in the world. Like Remax is like so jealous of Chris Fagan, right? Okay. And you're on the other side of the deal, and you see I'm cutting these corners. You see I'm doing this and that and the other, and I'm totally going against all of the Trek rules and whatnot. But for a fact that the governor is like, me and him, we go golfing every weekend. That you could blow the whistle on me, you could say something against me, but that I'm well connected. How easy is it for you to go, you know what, this fight, I
can't. I can't, and I won't, and that happens.
No, but
now.
But I'm saying, how easy is it, like, for people who do say that, like, how with that pressure, how easy is it for people to just go, not this time? I'm not saying you would.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying, in with us just being in like a self-policing industry, right, of real estate, we are the ones that kind of police ourselves. How many times have you let something slide, especially on an agent that is a crazy high producer or that works for a really large, well-known brokerage, that you know what they're doing is totally wrong. But like, do you want that headache? Do you want to be labeled as like that agent that blew the whistle and tattled to track on, you know what I mean, over this? Is it really that big? And I mean, if that exists in real estate, which isn't really a detriment to society, it's not life altering, right? You know, real estate. But then, of course, if it's hard for us, then it's definitely going to be hard for police officers that, you know, I mean, they put their lives on the line every day and back each other up. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, and that's a lot of pressure.
You'll see that mentality, especially from that one officer who's justifying doing that bad act and goes, I put my life on the line for these people. I forgot what I saw when a cop said that. I put my life on the line for these people every day. So so in his mind, he was thinking, when I make this one mistake, I should get a pass because these people are like not being ungrateful because of the fact that I'm constantly putting my life on the line, for them. So I shouldn't be punished when I accidentally, shot one of them by mistake, but that was 100% innocent, because you should take, it's almost like a guy's defense whenever he gets caught doing something wrong, or maybe he's upset with his wife or girlfriend because of something.
But I've been paying the bills for the last 6 months, so I should get a pass.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost that exact mentality. It's like whenever, like with my ex, I used to remember was thinking all the time, like I forgot to wash the dishes or do this day. So in the middle of the argument, like she's talking to me or yelling at me as if I didn't do this perfectly the whole week. It doesn't matter that I did it perfectly Monday through Thursday. I forgot to do it on Friday, and that's all we're focused on. Right. It's like you don't get a pass. I know that's an opposite, kind of a scenario, but it's almost like what they think. It's like I put the badge on, I put the vest on, and I go out there patrol every day. So I made this one mistake, and it's like they're not gonna give me a pass. Like no, they're not. No, it's
when your mistake affects the livelihood of other people, then you don't get a pass. Just like we don't get a pass. I mean, next time I get pulled over for speeding or something, or let me just go smoke a joint down the road.
What about all the other times I wasn't smoking a joint?
Yeah, when a cop comes up to me, I'd be like, well, this is just my one mistake. For the past 5 years, I didn't smoke a joint on the street at all. So let me just have this one pass. It doesn't work like that,
Right.
Yeah, Chauncey, what about all the other times I didn't cheat?
Well, I mean, it all goes back to kind of the same thing that we keep talking about. It's just like people just idolize law enforcement, and now they feel like they're on a pedestal, and they're in this elevated position of society. And what people don't understand is that respect for authority and respecting their position in our society is not a mutually exclusive concept that's separate from accountability.
Yeah.
You can hold someone accountable and still respect their authority at the same time. Like, you can say, Mom, I love you, and I know you're my mom, but you f***ing up today.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same thing.
And just want to mention, and I don't know how much time you guys have with me, so I'll keep talking as long as you guys want. But everybody who's out there that's listening and whatnot, feel free to chime in. I'll see the comments; it'll come up, and if you want to join the conversation or ask a question, I'll see it right here in the comment section. So just want to put that out there. Some people have been listening and coming in and out, but nobody really wants to say anything. Right? So feel free. Anything you guys want to type in, I'll see it. But go. I'm sorry, Chauncey. What were you saying? Go ahead.
Oh no, that was all. I was just saying those are not mutually exclusive concepts. Like, you can respect authority and back the blue and still say, you know what, sometimes you guys screw up and we got to make sure that we're not doing that. Especially if we're going to make sure that society functions the way that it should and respects that position.
Cop culture is the one group that's really quick to push that button. In fact, especially if they're in a situation where they're talking to a guy. Like, how many videos have you guys seen where the person that the cop is talking to or arresting or holding for questioning knows their rights and they say that out loud. Oh, I know the law, and you know, you don't have the right to ask me for my ID unless I did something wrong, or for somebody, or there's actual calling. And the second that cop feels like they're being embarrassed or disrespected, it comes from a 1 to a 10 immediately. Then it's like, are you disrespecting me? Are you? Then almost anything can happen after. It just goes into a whole different direction of respect and not being embarrassed in front of his coworkers or something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a really that's a dangerous game to play with a cop, especially if you're a black male, because you're the number one target usually. I mean, for stuff like that. So I've seen it happen with black men, and then they end up getting shot or their face stepped on the pavement, and then you got these white dudes doing it, and they just go on your way. So it's obvious that it's not just about the respect and embarrassment. There's racial bias at work that has to be addressed. It has to.
So did you see, we have a comment actually from Donald, guys, and he thinks that she should be let free.
Where
I don't see it. That must be, is it on the
yeah, it's on Facebook. It's on Facebook Live.
Oh, they didn't comment it on the video here directly.
Yeah, it's on the live stream. I'm just streaming, and Donald says she should have been set free. Anything to raise money. I think she has suffered enough. So, I mean, there are a lot of people that sympathize with her, because ultimately I do think it was a mistake, but I mean, somebody died. So I don't.
Okay, Donald. Okay, Donald. Here's the okay, I see it now. She should have been set free. Anything to raise money. I think she has suffered enough. More than the dead guy is the question. She's
wait, are you kidding?
My question is.
Oh,
did she suffer? Did Amber Guyger suffer more than the person she killed?
Well, answer.
It's impossible.
No.
So it's like, so again, when I see a comment like that, I immediately think to myself, so what did he do wrong? And there's never really a good answer, a reply to that. Back and on the streets, when we were talking about, like, when a police officer is trying to arrest somebody, and then the whole thing goes out of hand, and you can almost say anything. Well, you should always listen to the cop. You should always comply. It doesn't matter if you know you weren't doing anything wrong, and you just proved it or whatever. No, the cop just told you to get on the ground and take the position of a criminal. Doesn't matter how you feel. There was a police officer that was with his son, and it was going back and there was a man that was with his son, and he was going back and forth with this police officer that was I think he was giving somebody a ticket, and the guy was a pastor, and the police officer got in his face and was like, they had words and whatnot, and the guy could, if he was by himself, he could have just let it go and be like, all right, whatever, and walked away. But he said, but he was with his son. He wanted to. He was walking. He said that he was walking a very fine line. He could have just let it go, because this cop could have been crazy and just would have blown it out of proportion and probably did something to him. But he didn't want to set the example for his son that it was okay for the cop to disrespect him and dehumanize him as a man for no good reason. And so he was walking a very fine line, and I feel like he did it properly, but it could have gone very bad. He could have gotten killed in front of his son. It could have been. So he took a lot of people take a risk, and I don't think that people think about the risks that people, black or white, doesn't matter. I don't think they think about the risks that people are in when they know they're not involved. It's easy after the fact to go, you should have did this or you should have did that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
But if you're in it, you don't know what you would do.
It's easy to say I would do this or I would do that when you're not actually in that situation. But, we all kind of have an idea of what we might do. And of course, that can definitely change when you're actually in the situation. But, I think it's important that we all agree that we should all be respectful to one another. Like, unless a cop is being just horribly disrespectful to you, there's no reason to just have an attitude right at the start of an interaction with a police officer. So I just want to establish that so I'm not like misunderstood. I'm not a cop hater, and I don't, disrespect cops or anything like that. But I think there should be mutual respect, and, police should respect us as citizens just as much as we should respect them. And if we all walk into encounters with that mentality, then I think we would have fewer incidences.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I know that's we're getting off. We went longer than I expected, so I know it's getting. But I'd love to have this conversation on different topics, because I told you, Sarah. I said I knew it. I said that if this went the way I felt like it was going to go, the back and forth, and I felt like it was strong, I was going to invite you guys again. So welcome to the show, because I'm definitely going to have you guys on again. I don't know if you want to. We can talk about other hard-hitting topics like this. We can talk about I mostly talk about entertainment stuff, but every now and then I do hit topics like this. And I want to get people's opinion about it. So I appreciate you guys, taking the time to sit down and talk with me, and because you guys know a lot about a little and little about a lot of things, and I can tell you guys have really, this has impacted you in a tremendous way, and I'm glad you've had the time to share it with us.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
So, is there any closing statements anybody want to share before we sign off?
Well, I was just going to let you know I'm going to see The Joker tonight, so I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I know you usually talk movies, so
I will. My review will be coming up on that in the next few minutes, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll watch.
Outstanding. And Chauncey, I'm going to talk to you later about some real estate stuff, because that whole scenario about me being bigger than Remax was not true. But I think you knew that. That's why you laughed so hard.
We're going to talk.
Before the show, I told her, I said, "Why, Sarah? Why did you introduce me to this realtor that's just making me feel bad about myself? You did that on purpose, but it's all good." But
Chauncey makes us all look a little less than.
She goes, "Chris, I'm just trying to make you better. Okay, that's why I put you guys in touch."
She's a pro and shit.
Obviously, I saw the YouTube channels where she said,
"Well, subscribe.
Go subscribe to Chauncey Fam on YouTube. She kicking ass out there in Dallas. What about you, Sarah? You have anything that you want to plug? Your business or anything like that?
I mean, if anyone needs some badass staging in DFW, hit me up.
Badass staging, indeed. She does all of our properties, so she's pretty amazing.
Outstanding. And as for me, guys, you already know, talking to the medias and Credit Realty. That's the name of my firm. If you guys want, please like and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate your time. Continue the conversation, hit the comments, and put it in the box. Let us know what you guys think about the case. And until next time, peace. And